Hello, today I'm going to teach you guys how to break down a flower to make it easier to draw. So the key for drawing flowers is first figuring out how much space it's going to take up on your piece of paper. Here's my drawing paper, here's my photograph. It's kind of 1-to-1 right now. You might be working at a different scale, but the key is to kind of figure out like where you want the top of the flower to be, where you want the bottom to be, and then the general kind of shape that the flower takes up. I'm not focusing on any of the individual petals yet. I'm just focusing on kind of the size and the space that it'll take up. The next thing you're going to want to do is find the center of the flower. Now, the center of the flower is not the center of this circle, so don't just go in and make a circle directly in the middle, although mine's going to be pretty darn close. The center of the flower is right here at the base, or if you looked at a flower from the side, it's where the stem meets all the petals. All the petals are converging towards this point. This little cup on the top is converging towards this point, and then all the bits inside here are all going towards this one center point. So just kind of estimate where I think that is. And I feel like there's a little bit more on the right hand side of this flower, so I'm going to put my little epicenter there. Next thing you want to do is break your flower into groups, or bisect it, or like cut it into quadrants. You can count petals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This one has 6 petals. We could do kind of a line down through the center, a line through here to show those petals. If you were doing something like a rose, now a rose, looks fairly complex, but if you break it down, there's a petal group here, there's a petal group here, petal group here, and a petal group here, and then it's kind of like this flower where there's like a little tuft in the middle. So it looks complex, but it really can be broken into quadrants. This is 5-petaled flower. So what I'm going to do is kind of look at the angle, because these line up, and these line up. So I'm going to sketch those, and I want that line to go through the center of the flower. And that'll help you with the sizes of the petals. Okay, so that's looking for the angles. And then you can start to look at like the basic shapes that you see, the basic petal shapes. So I can start to sketch out very lightly, because I'm not trying to get anything specific. And hopefully you can see these lines. I'm drawing them so lightly. Maybe I'll do a little bit darker just so you can see. When you're doing this, look for where they overlap. Like this flower petal overlaps that one slightly. This one overlaps that one. So just kind of look at those. That's where you're going to get some of your basic form, your basic depth. Is like where do these things overlap? Notice I'm drawing the petals going all the way into the center, even though there's obviously this daffodil cup on top that's covering up a lot of those. That's for continuity of lines. So as they come into the center, they all look like they're part of the same flower, and the petals aren't just coming out of some weird place. So I'm bringing that into the center. I don't really even see much of this top petal. I'm not focusing too much. There's a little dip right here, so I just kind of indicated that. Right now, it's just like when we do a still life, general shapes, and then we're going to work in towards specific details, or the contours, like all these little dips and curves around the cup, or these little places where it notches in, or this little nubbin that comes out here on the tips of the petals. That's all stuff that we work on after we get the general shape of the flower. Now what's going to be really nice about these flowers is in the end, no one's really going to see your reference photo or your reference flower, and flowers are organic, so it's gonna hide some mistakes. You still want it to look anatomically correct. Now here's a part where the petal comes up and over, so it kind of overlaps itself. That's going to be really important to get that that angle, not angle, but that little place where it flips. But you're going to be able to get away with a lot, because as long as it looks like the flower type, no one's going to really know, oh, well, that flower definitely doesn't have that little spot where it dips in. Most people are not going to know. So there, we've got the basic flower. That's if we didn't have the cup on the top. Now we are going to do the cup. We know that the base is going to be right here, and there's going to be stuff coming out of it. What I want to do is kind of focus on this general circle around it. If you drew a circle and this is the center of it, see how it's way off to the side? I want to make sure that when I draw out my cup here, and I'm just kind of roughing it in, I want to make sure that the center of it is way down here and there's a lot of cup up here. All right. Let's see, what should we say next? Oh, okay. Right here, this is going to be where the inner parts of the flower are. Oh, here's one thing we can do. We can go back and erase where these other petals go behind. Alright, then we can start drawing out these. In my photograph, you can see my hand behind, so maybe start sketching out basically where you can see the fingers. Okay, so now we got the basic flower. Hopefully this looks kind of like the photograph. Now you want to start looking at the outside edges of your shapes, your shapes, your petals and stuff. The petals, if you look, are somewhat symmetric. Like this one's a really good example. If you drew a line down the center, it kind of has very similar shape on either side. This one's a lot more asymmetric. This one's, you can kind of go symmetrical on this one. This one's asymmetric. But what you want to do is you want to start looking for that symmetry. If it helps, and sometimes there are lines, like this one has a little bit of a crease right down the center. This one has a little bit of a crease. A light line down the center of your petal can help you kind of create that symmetry, or even help with your asymmetry. Just kind of know how much is on one side and how much is on another. But at this point, we can start to really define the edges. Now, it's going to be important that you don't rely a whole lot on dark outlines for this. In the end, you want it to all be about shading, or as much about shading as possible. So when we start shading the leaf, maybe the leaf is a light value, but there's dark values behind it. We got this cast shadow on this one. Make the edges more about the edges of shadows, of values, just like Gail Price taught us long ago, or earlier this year. Start looking for little edges and corners. Let's see. Is there anything else I wanted to tell you? So yeah, things you want to focus on in this project are going to be shading, like all these cast shadows, highlights, how there's highlight here, there's shadows here, so you should have a whole range of values. You should have textures. The petals have little folds and little rough spots, you should be capturing those. And just like the dark values around here, look for those things. Look where petals fold over and where we can put a cast shadow behind. Just try to move from outlining and making this all about an outline to more about shading. Oh, and also when you're shading, if you're shading this petal, shade in the direction of the petal. So just like any good baking show, I've already done mine. This is my pre-done cake that I just pulled out of the oven. Notice that I've captured the basic shadows. Here's what I mean by implying the outline. So I've implied the outline of this cup by putting in the dark value on this leaf. I define this leaf by the dark values. I'm putting in darker values like the shadows underneath the flower to help it pop forward. Notice I'm using scumble in the background, just kind of intentional scribble to kind of indicate all this out of focus ground behind it. Yours, I mean, everybody's going to have something a little bit different. Actually, I think this, I posted this picture on the pages so that you can, if you want to draw this one, you can. If you want to draw any of the other photos that I took of flowers, you can. Of course, hopefully you went out yesterday and done your little walk around and you've found some flowers that you want to draw. But make it about the edges of values and not the edges of outlines. I will be putting up more and more information and hopefully find some stuff to help you along the way for this project. And just remember, on Friday, send me your progress, even if it's just this, if it's just the outline of the flower. If you have both images like this, so I can see them side by side and be able to tell you, oh, well, that's obviously a proportion issue, send those along. And then next Friday, a finished drawing, although I would, fill the rest of this composition, finish this petal's not really done. But next Friday, these will be due. So enjoy. I hope this is a fun project and not a cumbersome project. Have a good day.